Welcome to the Sacred Emergence Podcast. I'm your host, Michelle Wong, and I'm so thrilled that you're here. This is a place where you'll be guided to living your most aligned life so that your truest, most radiant self can emerge. We'll be jamming on topics ranging from spirituality, entrepreneurship, to wellness and lifestyle design, and everything in between that can support you to grow, evolve, and shine, all the while not taking ourselves too seriously. So if you're ready to step into your leadership, break through limiting beliefs, own all of who you are, and expand in abundance, grab yourself your faith cup of tea and let's dive in. Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Sacred Emergence. I am so stoked to introduce you to Erin Bruce, who is the creator of Seasonal Soul. And Erin is joining us by way of Ireland, but she is a Pacific Northwester from Seattle area. Welcome to the show, Erin.
Thank you, Michelle. I'm so happy to see you and be here and talk to everybody.
Yeah, I'm so excited too. And we haven't talked since earlier this year before you made your move, you and your family. And before we recorded, you were just sharing how just around transitions and adjusting. Yeah, so share more about that and how it's been for you.
Yeah, well, of course, being someone who writes about the seasons and is really interested in the seasonal energy, I have been thinking more and more recently as I've been going through these big transitions in my life, thinking about how we have these different seasons of our lives that we go through. You know, you have a season when you might be in college, or a season when you're a young parent, or a season when you're starting a new career. And so this season for me has been all about moving, relocating my family internationally, and everything that comes along with that, the blessings and the struggles. And it's been a really amazing, eye-opening experience for us that I just feel so grateful to be able to have this experience of living internationally in a different culture, to have my kids experience living in a different culture, especially at this time when there's just so much happening politically. It feels really, really great to be in a different place, to have a different perspective. So that's what we were doing.
Actually. Yeah, especially if you're kind of like, because there's so much happening in the US and in general. And so the fact that you're kind of plucked out in a way and able to see a bigger perspective, that's actually really awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and it's really interesting too. One thing I've learned about the Irish is they have no qualms about talking politics, which is so different, I think, in the United States. It's despite the deep feelings that everybody has about it, we feel all polite and nobody wants to ask about it, and it's a topic that we want to avoid. But here in Ireland, they'll just say, "Oh, you're American, huh? What do you think about Trump?"
Let it out.
Which is so jarring, but also so refreshing, you know, because then you can really, I've had some of the most interesting conversations that you just would never have. Unfortunately, I think we need more of that in the United States.
Yeah,
so
I agree.
It's been really refreshing.
Yeah. I mean, it's such a charged topic that I think it would help us to be more open-minded. And at the same time, if I'm in a heated conversation, I don't want to hear the other side yet. You know what I mean? Let's be real.
Yeah. And that is true. Yeah.
Well, we are in fall, autumn, and I'm guessing it's the same for Ireland.
Yes.
Yeah. And
it's actually very similar to Seattle, which has been great. Yeah, it's been, I think a lot of people struggle moving to Ireland in the same way that people struggle moving to the Pacific Northwest. Yeah. And for us, it's been kind of seamless because it's very similar.
Yeah, so we were talking about how, with fall, it's all about transitions and changing of the seasons. And so and then just around your transition into Ireland, and then you are coming back to Seattle in the
Yes.
near future down the road.
Yes.
But like, yeah, just how with seasons, it's not just the weather. Like there's just so many layers to it and how it's reflecting in our own lives. But we can totally, let's dive in and talk about like actual seasons, right? Because that's
Yeah.
kind of
Okay.
the main foundation.
Yeah.
Yeah. So why is it important to talk about seasons?
Well, I'm really glad that you asked that. It is so important because, I think a lot of times we think of ourselves as separate from nature. But yet, as human beings, we are animals and we are a part of nature and we are influenced by the natural energy, just like the trees, just like the animals that are hibernating. Everything that exists in nature is affected by the changing seasons, and we are not separate from that. So, but we like to think that we are. And so, very often, and in our modern day society, we're expected to operate at the same level and do the same things regardless of what time of year it is. But because we're so heavily influenced by the seasonal energy, that really goes against some of our natural rhythms. And so things like as we move into winter, we start talking a lot about the reduced sunlight and seasonal affective disorder, which I know has a lot of causes. But I think one of the biggest things is that people are experiencing this it's this juxtaposition between what is expected of us and how the seasonal energy is influencing us. So as the days get shorter and colder, and it's a natural time to move inward. And so naturally, we want to slow down. We want to sleep more. We want to rest more. But our modern society doesn't allow us to do that. And so I think a lot of the struggles that people face at this time of year is because they're not allowed to live in the natural rhythms. And so you're fighting against yourself and your natural energy levels by trying to maintain this energy level that is not natural in winter. And so in my work, I really want to help people understand the seasonal energy so that we have a better understanding of the expectations that we put on ourselves and just the work that we should be doing. And the personal growth work is so different. The things that we can be working on in winter is so different from the things that we can be working on and the ways that we can be growing in summer. And so if we have a greater understanding of that, then we can really access the seasonal energy in the same way that the trees and the flowers and everything do. And then we can also grow and flourish when we are functioning with the seasonal energy instead of going against it.
I love that. Especially this probably won't change, but back to school, I always think it's like it starts in the fall. Like it's like this fresh energy when really we should be gearing down.
Yeah, but also I do think there is this natural in the fall when we're moving into the autumn equinox, there is this influx of energy because we are changing seasons, that there is this kind of natural like new beginning because we're shifting from one type of energy to another type of energy, and your spirit can kind of feel that and sort of gets excited about like the changes that are coming. So even though it is this like moving inward, it is still this like rejuvenating energy because because it's a shift. Summer is a season of so much outward focused energy that by the end of summer, your spirit really can be quite exhausted.
Mm-hmm.
And so then when the autumn equinox rolls around and we start moving into fall and we start having this awareness of like this inward season coming, it feels like, yes, like I want to do all these things and use this new energy in a different way.
I like that. And then that's why I like the pumpkin spice, because we can all like go inward with our, our warm drinks.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Well, and I think autumn too is such a sensory season.
Yeah.
So, I mean, all the seasons have their own senses that go along with it, but autumn is just really like it's colorful. You can feel it in the air. Like it just influences so many senses. I
Mm-hmm.
think you can really like it helps like tingle that excitement.
Yeah. And like, what's your favorite? Like, I think I know what your favorite season is, but
Well, I usually always say it's autumn.
yeah.
But
But
really, like every time the seasons change, I get this feeling of like, oh yeah, I love winter because of this, this, and this, and like, oh yeah, I love spring. So
yeah, I
they're all
understand.
great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what brought you to actually like starting this work? Was there anything in your life that was like, I'm done. I'm gonna create like a more like cohesive way of connecting and living?
Yeah. So I had I I've always been someone who considered myself spiritual but not religious.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I started coming to this place around the time of my 40th birthday. I started coming to this place of feeling like, what does that actually mean? And like, is it just kind of like, is it just a dismissive way of, like, I didn't really feel like I had any meat to go along with that. Like, it's easy enough to say that you're a spiritual person, but I was really feeling like I needed some sort of practice to go along with that. And I have 2 kids, and they were kind of getting older, and I was feeling like it felt like important to me that I help them create some kind of spiritual practice, some sort of foundation for themselves. And I just had always really, really been drawn to the seasons and the Celtic and like Wiccan holidays. And I always related so much more to the seasonal based celebrations than like the Christian based celebrations. So
Mm-hmm.
even when I was a kid, I felt like Christmas just didn't really like, I loved Christmas for the presents. But in terms of like any kind of like deep meaning, I didn't really connect to it. Whereas you take, the winter solstice and the holidays that have been created around the time of the winter solstice, they just make so much more sense to me. They're so, they just seem so concrete. It's so understandable what people are celebrating at that time of year. So I was feeling all of these things and wanting to help my kids create this spiritual practice, and being at this place where I was turning 40 and feeling like, what am I going to do with my life? I wasn't feeling satisfied with the career that I was working, and it just felt like everything just sort of aligned to create this website. It started as a personal blog and has just kind of morphed into my business. And yeah, I as I've done more of this work, it's been fascinating to me to see, because at first when I started this work, I was really interested in like learning simple rituals to celebrate these seasonal days. And then it really quickly started to become clear to me and really fascinating about how the seasonal energy influences us on a much deeper level.
Mm.
So
Yes.
it's taken on this whole like personal growth component that I didn't anticipate when I first started.
Oh, yeah. So what were you like, what were some of the insights and the deeper work that was popping up?
Well, a lot of what I was talking about before, just about how it just became really clear how I started to see how I've always been interested in personal growth
Mhm.
and personal growth work and self-help
Mhm.
books. And that is a realm that I think really quickly becomes very overwhelming.
Mhm.
And so, like if you want to dive into your own personal growth work, it's hard to work out where you should focus your energy. Should I be doing this or should I be doing that? And everybody has like different ideas about the work that you could be doing to grow and evolve, and all of it is valid. But I started to see how when you connect that personal growth work with the seasons, it gives you some clarity about how, like, okay, this isn't the season for pushing myself out into the world. This is the season for doing internal work. And this is the season, since we're in autumn, like this specifically is the season for looking at what are the ways that we're holding ourselves back, and how can we start to let go of those things so
Mm.
that we can continue this growth and evolution process through the winter and into next spring. So it
Mm.
was really cool to start to have some focus and help,
Mhm.
kind of just gain some clarity and kind of weed out all of these really overwhelming ideas of where to be focusing your personal growth work.
I love that. And so the fact that we're in autumn, what are some of the rituals that we can start doing to kind of invite that work in?
Well, this is a really powerful time, like I said, to be looking at what you are ready to let go of.
Mhm.
So, when you look at the wheel of the year, it's really beautiful how everything flows from one season to the next. So, we've gone through this whole time of growth. And I always say this is happening whether you recognize it or not. Like it's
Mhm.
easy, I think, for us to be like, well, I haven't been growing, nothing has changed, but you have. You've had experiences over summer that you have grown from and learned from. And then now, as we move into fall, those experiences help us to see what are the ways that I'm holding myself back? What are the stories that I'm telling myself? What are the false limiting beliefs that I
Mm.
carry? And this is a part of now that this is a part of looking at our own darkness and shadows, which is also seasonally relevant because we're moving into this dark time of year and the energy is shifting inward. And so, likewise, we are shifting our focus inward. And so, it's a really powerful time to be looking within ourselves and looking at those parts of our lives that we feel unsatisfied with, the parts of our lives that we wish were stronger or different in some ways, and then really digging into those places, doing the hard inner work of recognizing what are the stories I tell myself about this part of my life. And very often you'll start to recognize that you are telling yourself some story that probably isn't even true.
Mhm.
It's just a story that you've repeated over and over that maybe someone told you at some point in your life who doesn't even matter and isn't even a part of your life anymore. And it was never true to begin with, but somehow you internalized this. And now you are allowing it to hold you back in some way.
Yeah.
So a lot of the work that I do this time of year is all about that, different ways that we can be looking at our own internal stories and darknesses and things that we kind of don't want to see about ourselves, and how are those holding us back, and then doing rituals and work around letting those things go. Once you know what the stories are that you're telling yourself, then you can do work around letting those go. And like one concrete ritual that you can incorporate into your life is to actually, like, if you tell yourself, if money is an area in your life that you struggle with, but you start to discover that deep down you actually have all of these stories about how money is bad and money is
Mhm.
evil. And you can actually take that story, money is evil, and turn it into money is a blessing. And I can do so many wonderful things with money in my life, and write that down everywhere in your house. Write it so you can see it in the morning, at night. Every time you have one of those stories come up, repeat to yourself the new story,
Mhm.
and eventually that will just become internalized. And you will have changed that story and let go of that unconscious way that you are limiting yourself.
I love that. I love that how like just utilizing the changing of the season, especially as we're heading, well, we're already in fall, but like it's still, we're in transition. And so I love that analogy. It's just so beautiful and really relevant and practical.
Yeah. Well, and I think, like I was saying, it also is so great because you can clear your mind of all the other things that you feel like you
Yeah.
should be doing.
Yeah.
And just focus on this one part of your life. And then as we move through the year, what we're focusing on will morph into, then after you do this work of letting these stories go, then comes the work of like creating new stories, and what like
Mhm.
new things are going to emerge in place of these things that you've let go. And then in spring, we start doing the work of planting new seeds, and what
Mhm.
new things can we grow in those places, and focus on that work later. You don't have to think about
Mhm.
that right now.
That's good. Yeah, because it's like, it's true. Like we all want to do it all at once,
Yeah.
have it all figured out. And that's not really, well, nature has it figured out. Like follow nature.
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And then we were
So
talking
watch
about,
what nature's doing.
yeah, watch what nature's
Nature's
doing.
doing. Do that.
Yeah. And how, like, I just loved how, like, when we were talking, and just taking it, like using this seasonal, like all the transition and all like new beginnings and whatnot as like a template, and bringing it into like just the season of our own lives. And it feels like when you were sharing how when you were 40, like when you turned 40, like what am I going to do? And that was like a whole transitional for you. Like
Yes.
that was a season. So eight, like
Yes.
not to say age, but like our lives as we, get more
Yeah.
older, like, it's,
Yeah, it's absolutely true. And it's interesting too, as I've been thinking more about this idea about having seasons in our lives, it's been interesting to see how that also gets laid over this literal seasonal energy.
Mhm.
Because, like, one thing that I've been find myself coming back to a lot lately, is I have been confronting this like idea of aging, which is interesting that you bring that up, um, and realizing that I'm in this season of my life when I'm starting to recognize that I'm getting older, and like all the thoughts that start to come up around aging. And so interesting to recognize that, and I don't think it's coincidental that these thoughts are starting to formulate in autumn, which is the time of like things getting older and things aging and like things starting to, die away. So it's just this time of like confronting this physical aspect of things aging, and interesting how it's also something that's been coming up in my mind
Mm.
recently.
Yeah, that's interesting. And also like I've been reading like all these books around like just talking about aging for a second to like not buy into that culture that as we get
Yes.
older, we're gonna get
Yeah.
sicker and all rickety. Like that's just BS, right?
Yes.
I would like we're just wiser, we just have more
Totally.
knowledge and
Yes.
wisdom and experience.
Yes.
Yeah.
And take better care of ourselves. And
Yeah.
yeah, I feel like I'm actually getting healthier as I get
Good.
older.
Awesome. Yeah, we're just wiser, eating better. I don't know,
Yeah.
working out.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's an old paradigm that's ready to die
Get
away.
released.
Yes. We'll let that go.
Let that go. Do you think that as women, we are more in tune with like just seasons and transitions? Or do you think, like, sometimes I think because women are more cyclical because we have our own, well, that's not true.
Mhm.
Like, we have our own like menstrual cycle and all that, right? But then men have their own cycle. It's just
Right.
they run on a 24-hour clock.
Yeah.
We run on 28 days. But
Right.
I don't know. I was just thinking as you were talking, because, with women, we go through menopause as well, and men don't really. Maybe there
Yeah.
is menopause. I don't
Must
know.
be something that yeah. Um, yeah, it's interesting that you ask that. I mean, I think anecdotally, there's things like primarily my readers are women,
Mhm.
and all of my clients are women. And I think in general, women are more, this is such a like terrible generalization, but I do feel like women are more um, open to doing this personal growth work. And I think a big part of that is that women are more encouraged, or it's like more allowed for women to
Mm.
explore stuff like this. So I don't know what I think about. I do think that men in our culture are have a greater, there's more pressure on them
Mhm.
to be,
That
this like
linear, like,
masculine energy.
yeah.
Yeah, this like very yang masculine energy. And women are more encouraged to, like, we're allowed to kind of have both.
Mm.
And so I do think that probably women are more connected to this idea of this kind of like yin and yang, and this like inward and outward energy, which is such a vital component of the seasonal energy.
Mhm.
So I'm sure that there are ways that women are more
In tune, only because,
tuned.
yeah, only
Yeah.
because it's just culturally, right? But
Yeah, I think
hopefully
it's more
that's,
like socially acceptable.
yeah, well, hopefully that, well, is changing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Because you have two sons, right? You have two
I have
boys.
a son, an older son and a younger daughter.
Oh, you do? Why did
Yeah.
I think I
Yeah.
knew
I don't know.
that? Does your son, like, is he ever interested in like the work that you do?
Um, yeah, I would say he is. My daughter for sure is. Like, she was born a little witchy woman. Uh, but yeah, I would say my son is, and that's a component of my work. I want to find ways that are fun and engaging for kids to
Mhm.
be involved in this work. And I am always surprised because he's 14, he's a teenager now. And so I think there's a lot of ways in which he could think this kind of stuff is not cool, but my kids love it when like
Mm.
we light candles, and we have a ritual that we've done a couple years at the winter solstice, which is all about like turning off all the lights in the house to really experience this like dark time of year. And they both love it. Like, even as a teenager, he's like running around the house. And so I think it's cool. I think that there is something about some of this like seasonal work and like the making observing the seasons fun. That I
Mm-hmm.
think it's really beautiful how I feel like there's some things that we've done that actually allow him to like be a kid, because
Mm-hmm.
14 is such this funny age. Like you still kind of want to be a kid, but there's this pressure to be like a cool teenager. And so it's always fun to find ways that he can still really like just be a kid and express
Yeah.
that. And like in the fall, we do this activity where we go collect leaves and nuts and just kind of anything that is falling and that's seasonal. And then we make faces out of them.
Oh, it is so fun.
Yeah, and it's so great. And it's really fun to see how he's just totally into it, like foraging for materials and doing, like this whole art project.
Oh, that is so, you're such a cool mom. Like,
Oh,
I love that you were saying turning off all the lights. I'm like, that would be so fun. Like, that'll
yeah.
be fun now. Like, yeah, I remember when we were talking like over the summer, or we were close to summer, you're like, yeah, I just want my kids to be bored for the summer. Like,
Oh,
I was like, that is very true. Like, because in the summertime, kids get bored.
yeah. 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 It is. Yeah. I never subscribed to over scheduling my kids.
Yeah.
And it just,
Yeah.
we can just give ourselves all breaks as
Mhm.
parents. It's like good for the kids to be bored. It's good for the parents to not have to entertain them or drive them around everywhere. Like, let's just take that pressure off of ourselves, off of our kids and off of ourselves.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
good. So
Yeah.
good. So how does your like working with you work? Like you have a membership program, is that right?
Yeah. So I have a subscription, a monthly subscription. And it's aligned with the moon cycle.
That's
So
another good cycle.
every new moon, you get a new monthly guidebook that has an overview of what the seasonal energy is, what's happening in nature, how that is, affecting um, our spirits and our lives. And then it has journal questions. I really am a big believer that journaling is such a huge component of personal growth and accessing some of those like inner parts of ourselves. So each month comes with journal questions and tarot spreads and simple, really, really simple rituals that you can do to celebrate the moon cycle and celebrate whatever seasonal celebrations are happening that month.
I love that. That is such a great way to really connect, and not just like with what you were saying, like with nature, like it's not separate from us, right? And it's like, especially
Right.
looking at the moon, it's in us as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, incredible. So how can people find your work?
They can find me at theseasonalsoul.com, and I am in all the social places as the Seasonal Soul. So you can look me up on Facebook or Instagram.
Awesome. And I'll include links in the show notes as always.
Great.
Yeah, it was such a pleasure talking to you and seeing you,
Oh, you
Erin.
too. I just loved it. I loved this conversation and I really love the work that you're doing. I think everybody should go listen to all your past episodes.
Thank you.
Yeah, there's just so much great things and I'm really in awe of the community that you are able to bring together. Just so many interesting, beautiful people.
Oh, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Yay. All right, everybody, check out Erin's work and stay tuned for our next episode every Monday and sometimes Thursdays. Bye. Join our free private Facebook group community, Sacred Emergence, to receive more connection, guidance, and support. And take part in our 5-day Inner Confidence Challenge to not only boost your confidence, but to help activate your inner leadership. Details in the show notes. Thank you for listening to the Sacred Emergence podcast. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss an episode, and thank you in advance for sharing this with others who can benefit. Until next time.